Hello everyone, today I want to talk about something that can change the way people see you, treat you, and most importantly, how you see yourself. The title is simple but powerful. Be valuable, not available. In a world that constantly demands our time, attention, and energy, we often fall into the trap of always being available. Every message, every call, every demand, we respond instantly. But here's the truth, constant availability doesn't build respect, value does. Think about the most successful people you know. Are they always available to everyone, every moment of the day? No. Why? Because they protect their time, focus their energy, and invest in their growth. They are not avoiding people, they are building value. And when they show up with purpose. Being valuable means being intentional. It means knowing your worth, setting boundaries and focusing on what matters. It means saying no when you need to, and yes when it counts. So don't spread yourself thin just to be present everywhere. Be strategic, be rare, be impactful. You were not born to be accessible 24/7. You were born to bring value. Be the person who's respected for what you bring to the table, not just how often you're around it. Availability doesn't equal respect. Many people believe that the more available they are to others, the more they will be appreciated, needed, or loved. It's a common mindset, especially in today's fast-paced digital world, where instant replies and constant check-ins have become the norm. But the truth is, when you are always available, your presence can start to be taken for granted. It's not because people are unkind or ungrateful. It's because human nature tends to undervalue what is always accessible. When something is always within reach, it loses its sense of importance, urgency, and uniqueness. This applies to your time, your presence, your attention, and your energy. Being available all the time often leads to burnout, resentment, and a loss of focus on your personal goals. You become reactive instead of proactive, constantly responding to the needs and wants of others, rather than prioritizing your own purpose. Eventually, people begin to expect your availability rather than appreciate it. They don't stop to consider the effort it takes from you, because they've come to see your presence as a given. Instead of striving to be always on call or always present, focus on being intentional with your time. Let people learn to wait, to miss your presence, and to value your attention when they do receive it. When your time and energy are given with purpose, they become more impactful. People will start to recognize that when you speak, when you show up, when you give your support, it carries weight. It's not just another moment. It's a moment that matters. So remember, it's not your availability that earns you respect. It's your value. The more you value your own time, the more others will too. Protect your time and energy. These are two of your most valuable resources, and once spent, they can never be fully recovered. Yet we often give them away too freely, to distractions, to obligations that don't serve us, to people who don't truly appreciate them. In a world where everyone is vying for your attention, through notifications, messages, meetings, and endless demands, learning how to guard your time and energy becomes not just important, but essential for your growth, peace, and success. Every time you say yes to something unimportant, you're saying no to something meaningful. Whether that's rest, self-improvement, a passion project, or quality time with loved ones. You only have so much bandwidth in a day. If you fill it up with things that drain you instead of fuel you, you end up operating at a fraction of your potential. Your body may still be moving, but your spirit, your creativity, your clarity, they suffer. That's why protecting your time isn't selfish, it's strategic. Energy is even more subtle and sacred. You can be in a room for an hour and leave completely drained just from who you were around. Some people feed your energy, while others feed off of it. The more self-aware you become, the easier it is to notice who and what leaves you feeling inspired versus depleted. Once you recognize those patterns, you owe it to yourself to start making adjustments, not out of spite or arrogance, but out of respect for your future. This kind of protection starts with boundaries. Not just physical ones, but mental and emotional ones. It's saying no without guilt. It's turning off your phone and tuning into yourself. It's letting go of the pressure to respond immediately and replacing it with the freedom to act intentionally. The more protective you become over your energy, the more powerfully you show up in the moments that truly matter. Value comes from purpose. It's not enough to simply be present. You have to be present with intention. When your actions are rooted in purpose, they carry a weight that goes beyond routine. You're not just showing up to fill space. You're showing up to shift it. People begin to sense that difference. They notice the thought behind your words, the reason behind your choices, and the deeper why behind your presence. Purpose gives your value depth. It's what transforms ordinary into extraordinary. Think about how differently you approach your day when you have a clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing. Tasks feel more meaningful. Conversations become more engaging. You're not floating through life. You're grounded in direction. You may not always know every detail of your journey, but when you're driven by purpose, you're anchored by something greater than the moment. This is what sets apart people who are merely available from those who are truly valuable. Availability is passive. It reacts to what comes. Purpose is active. It creates, leads, and inspires. When you move with purpose, you stop chasing validation. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself in every room or respond to every demand. Your worth isn't tied to how many people need you at a given moment, but to how deeply you're rooted in what you bring to the table. People don't remember who answered the fastest or who was always there. They remember who made them think, who inspired them to do better, who showed up with clarity, even in chaos. Purpose creates that impact. It transforms every yes you give into a meaningful contribution. It gives your voice authority, your presence gravity, and your time value that can't be faked or forced. Living with purpose requires clarity about who you are and what matters to you. It invites you to be selective about where you place your focus and intentional about where you invest your energy. The more aligned you are with your purpose, the more naturally your value increases, and the less you'll feel the need to prove it. Respect is earned through quality, not quantity. In life, it's easy to believe that being constantly involved, always saying yes, and showing up everywhere will make others respect and appreciate you more. But true respect isn't built on how often you show up. It's built on the strength of your presence when you do. It's not about being everywhere for everyone. It's about making every interaction meaningful and every contribution impactful. When people experience quality from you, whether it's through your work, your insight, your presence, or your support, they begin to associate you with reliability, wisdom, and excellence. They don't just see you as someone who is always there. They see you as someone who makes a difference. One thoughtful gesture, one honest conversation, or one powerful decision can earn more respect than 100 instances of passive presence. This is true in every space, personal, professional, spiritual. In relationships, People want to feel that your presence adds something real. In leadership, people don't follow those who are always available. They follow those who make sound decisions, communicate clearly, and act with integrity. In creativity or business, your value rises not from how much you produce, but from the impact of what you produce. Volume means nothing if there's no substance behind it. Focusing on quality over quantity also frees you from the exhausting cycle of overextending yourself. It allows you to give the best version of yourself instead of a scattered, burnt-out version. You move from trying to please everyone to actually serving the right people with excellence. And in doing so, you attract deeper trust and higher regard. Respect grows when people see that you value your own time and standards. When you don't give your attention to it shows that your time has weight. It creates a sense of exclusivity around your presence, not in a prideful way, but in a purposeful way. People begin to listen more carefully. When you speak, consider your feedback more seriously, and recognize the effort and thought behind your actions. You don't have to overexpose yourself to earn respect. You just have to deliver value with intention, clarity, and consistency. When you do that, your presence speaks louder than your availability ever could. You can say no. It might sound simple, even obvious, but for many people, saying no is one of the hardest things to do. We've been conditioned to believe that saying no means we're letting someone down, missing out, or being selfish. But the truth is, saying no is not a rejection, it's a redirection. It's not an act of selfishness. It's a declaration of self-awareness and self-respect. Learning to say no is one of the most powerful ways to protect your time, your energy, and your value. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your priorities, you are silently saying no to something that does. You're giving away space in your life that could be used for rest, creativity, growth, or something deeply fulfilling. And while it may feel good in the moment to please others or avoid conflict, over time this pattern chips away at your sense of control and direction. You start living reactively instead of intentionally. The word no sets boundaries. It defines where your responsibilities end and someone else's begin. It tells the world what you will and will not accept, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. When you say no to things that drain you or pull you away from your purpose, you're saying yes to your peace, your progress, and your path. You're refusing to dilute your presence by scattering it too thin. People often respect those who have the courage to say no, especially when it's done with grace and confidence. It shows that you know your worth and are not afraid to protect it. It also sets a standard. It teaches others how to treat you and what to expect from you. The more you practice saying no to the things that don't serve your goals, the more space you create for the things that do. It's also important to understand that not every opportunity is meant for you. Not every invitation requires your presence. Not every call for help is your responsibility. And that's okay. The world doesn't need you to be everywhere at once. It needs you to be fully present and powerful in the places that truly matter. Saying no gives you that ability. It allows you to move from being stretched thin to being rooted deep. It gives you the focus to do fewer things better, rather than more things poorly. Saying no doesn't make you less kind, less generous, or less dependable. It makes you more honest, more aligned, and more impactful. When used wisely, no is not a rejection of others. It's a commitment to your highest self. Focus on growth, not just presence. In a world that often celebrates being seen, being everywhere, and being constantly involved, it's easy to confuse visibility with value. But being present without progress leads to stagnation. You can be in the room, in the conversation, in the spotlight, and still not be. Presence might get attention, but it's growth that builds legacy. It's growth that transforms you from someone who simply exists in spaces to someone who elevates them. Growth requires intention. It doesn't happen just because time passes. It happens when you choose to challenge yourself, to step outside of your comfort zone, and to invest in who you are becoming. While others are focused on being available, answering every call, attending every event, responding to every message, you can choose to focus on becoming better, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and professionally. That quiet work you do behind the scenes, the discipline you practice when no one is watching, the books you read, the skills you refine, the habits you build, that's the foundation of real value. People who focus on growth often disappear for a while. They're less visible because they're more focused. They're not always available because they're building something within themselves and around them. And when they return, they bring something different to the table. They speak with more clarity, move with more confidence, and contribute with more depth. That's because they've taken the time to evolve. Presence can keep you relevant, but growth keeps you irreplaceable. The more you grow, the more you expand what you can offer to the world. You become someone who doesn't just show up. You shift the atmosphere when you do. People begin to notice, not just that you're around, but that you've become sharper, wiser, and more impactful. You're not repeating the same cycles, you're rising through them. You're not just busy, you're becoming. It's also worth noting that growth isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like big announcements or flashy accomplishments. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it looks like learning patience, healing old wounds, or unlearning unhealthy habits. Sometimes it's saying less and listening more. But even in its quietest form, growth changes everything. It changes how you see yourself, how you approach challenges, and how you interact with others. When you prioritize growth over being constantly present, you begin to live with more direction and less distraction. You stop trying to prove your worth through your availability, and instead you build your worth through your development. You become someone who doesn't need to be everywhere, because your growth speaks volumes, even when you're silent. So remember, it's not about how often you show up. It's about who you are when you do. Don't chase validation by being constantly available. Instead, cultivate your value by growing, protecting your energy, living with purpose, and setting boundaries. The world doesn't need more people who are just present. It needs more people who are powerful, intentional, and rooted in their worth. Be valuable, not just available, and watch how everything around you begins to shift. Thank you.